What's good, y'all? Welcome back to the Playmakers Corner podcast. I'm your host for today, Simon Villanos, aka Coach V. This is episode 401. Just missed 400 by one episode. Make sure you check that out. By the way, this is recorded on September 17th, 2024, and we are covering week 4 of the 2024 Colorado Girls High School flag football season. We got games from September 10th of last week to September 16th of this week that we are going to go over. Had a pretty eventful Saturday on the 14th where Gideon was able to watch a number of games between Mountain View, Arapahoe, and Highlands Ranch. And then Gino was able to go to the state championship rematch of last year, Cherry Creek versus Arvada West. But we got a whole lot to talk about, so let's just go ahead and go into it here. I'm going to pass it off to Gideon and then Gino right after.
Hello, wonderful people, and welcome back to the Playmakers Corner podcast. And you might not have heard my voice before if you are listening to this edition of the show for the first time. Yes, this is a girls flag football recap here, one of the first ones that I've done. I've done a couple, but not very many. And ultimately, I was really excited for this mini tournament that was held up at Mountain View High School here in Loveland. They faced off against both Highlands Ranch and Arapahoe. And listen, first I do need to disclose one of the, you can find this out pretty easy on Max Preps. One of the founders of the podcast is the head coach for Arapahoe High School, Kodey Stauffer. So I will do my best to limit my bias there, but all around, I do think that for two of the teams, this was a good showing of a day. For one of them, unfortunately, it wasn't that great. But one of the games, the very first one, was one of the more fun football games I've been able to see in person, period. It was Mountain View versus Arapahoe, and Arapahoe actually played Mountain View the closest that anyone has played them all year, and gave Mountain View, it was the first time Mountain View had actually trailed in a game all year. So I am just going to hop right into this. I did get interviews with a couple of the players from this tournament, but those will be closer to the end here. So starting with Arapahoe, Whitney Fogler would pass to Carissa Skirdal for 10, but after a few short gains, the Warriors would have to punt before reaching the first down. Lizzie Padilla got a great pull while being trucked on a play before Alexa LaDuff would pick off a pass in the end zone and get it to the 3. But the offense would throw a pick 6 from that 3-yard line to go down 0-7 with 7 minutes, 10 seconds left in the first. Offense didn't go too well, so Taylor Bradley had to get a tackle on the punt return. And then Hannah Cadwallader got in on nearly every play of this defensive drive before, on offense, she would catch a scramble pass from Fogler for 10. Fogler would then get it to LaDuff for 30 yards to end the first quarter, before Cadwallader would keep for a touchdown to start the second. After 3 penalties on the defense during the try, so they had to replay the PAT 3 times, which was a lot, but the PAT would end up being no good, making it 6-7 with 11 minutes left on the clock. Cadwallader would then catch a pick and take it to the house, making it 12-7 with 10-10 on the board in the second quarter. This is also the first time this season that Mountain View has trailed in a game. This defense was looking stingy, especially with Bradley and LaDuff getting good tackles and pass deflections, but the Warriors would allow a huge touchdown pass on 4th and 20 to go down 12-13 with 7:17 left in the half. And let me tell you, nobody was particularly happy about this one because it was over their heads. Nobody was happy about that one. But after that, though, LaDuff would catch a pass for 9, but after a punt, Riley Kelly would get a pass deflection. Michaela Jacob would get a sack, and Bradley would get a pass deflection of her own to end the half, which was the closest any team has played Mountain View all year again. And this is a team that is ranked number 23 in the country. Unfortunately for Arapahoe, though, that was as far as it would go. Cadwallader would continue to get in on basically every tackle, but the A allowed another touchdown and PAT, going down 20-12 with 8:50 in the third. After throwing a pick, another touchdown would be allowed with 5:12, making it 26-12. Fowler would get it to Cadwallader for 10, but then Cadwallader would punt, which got about 35 yards, which is pretty good. Arapahoe allowed another touchdown, and it was 32-12 with 1:18 in the third. In the fourth, it started with a 3-and-out before Kelly would get a solid flag pull. After forcing a turnover on downs, Bradley would run for 8, but on D, the Warriors allowed another touchdown, making it 38-12 with 5:24. The offense would stall a bit, and so the Mountain Lions would score one last time with 12 seconds left to make it 44-12. Ultimately, very solid game here from Arapahoe. They do have some stuff to learn from, but I feel good about this team personally. And we will get more into this team later in their game against Highlands Ranch, but next up we have Mountain View's side of this contest against the Arapahoe Warriors. So Mountain View would get some good pressure here from Gwyneth Marks, which helped foster short gains out of the opposing offense, which helped to force a punt. Michaela Messias would run for 10 with a juke and a spin, and then Mason Premer would pass to Violet Hidalgo over the middle, but would throw a pick in the end zone, which thankfully for the Mountain Lions, Mia Artis would catch the pass on the 3-yard line and get a pick 6 off of that, making it 7-0 with 7:10 on the board. Hidalgo got a sack, but after that, the defense committed a few penalties, making it 3rd and short. Artis got a good pull, but Reese Peterson would have to return a punt for 8. On defense, the Lions would allow another touchdown, but after 3 tries and 3 penalties, they finally stopped the PAT. This made it 7-6 in the second with 11 minutes, 12 seconds left. Then the Lions trailed for the first time this whole season with 10-10 in the half to make it 7-12. Premer would run for 25, and after a timeout with 7:48 left, on 4th and 20 mind you, Premer would throw it down to Jessica Hopkins to get the tutty, making it 13-12 with 7:17. After an illegal contact call, Artis would get a good tackle for loss and help to force a punt. Artis would then run for 12 and then again for about the same, both on the right side where there were a couple of holes on the flats there. Kendall Finley would pass over to Marks for 8, but after a trip, Messias would run for 15 that would get called back for flag guarding. Artis then got a sack to end that first half, which, by the way, 14 penalties in that first half for Mountain View. In the second half, you'll see, but there were only 4 in the second half. So very, very messy half here from the Mountain View Mountain Lions. After that, though, what we were looking at was Hopkins running for 10, and then Finley would throw over to Messias for a touchdown. The Premer conversion rate went up where she managed to get it over to Marks to make it 20-12 with 8:50 in the third. Finley would catch a pick, and then Premer would rush for another touchdown, making it 26-12, while Artis would help force a punt with another sack. Marks would run in another score, making it 32-12 in the third, before Ellie Roberts would get a tackle for loss, followed by Peterson. And it was at this point that it was starting to get a bit out of hands. And then, after turnover on downs in the fourth, Marks would get a good pull to force another turnover on downs. Artis would have another touchdown on a 20-yard rush, making it 38-12 with 5 minutes, 24 seconds left. And after a Finley pick, she would also get a touchdown with 30 seconds left on the clock to make the final score 44-12. But Arapahoe would have to move on very, very quickly here because in 10 minutes after that, they had to play against Highlands Ranch, the Falcons, driving all the way up from, well, you could probably guess, Highlands Ranch. For the Falcons, the game started with Addison Jensen in my opinion, the best player on that squad, getting a sack. But then, after illegal contact, pass interference, and another Jensen tackle, things started to get a little bit shaky. Tatum Bukulcious, she got a pass deflection, and then Jensen had another sack. But after a punt on offense, the Falcons would allow a touchdown with 28 seconds left to go in the first quarter to go down 0-6. Catherine Apotheker would run for 10 and a first down before throwing a pick, and after PI and another Bukulcious pass deflection, Highlands Ranch allowed another touchdown, making it 0-14 with 3:51 on the clock. They both then had a turnover on downs and forced a turnover on downs heading into halftime. Catherine Apotheker would throw to Isabella Hawley for 12 and then repeated that connection for 7 more. They would then both punt and force a punt, although after Addison McLeod ran for 8, the Falcons threw another pick. Mia Apotheker saved a touchdown on one play but couldn't stop the next, and Highlands Ranch went down 21-0 with 3:05 in the third. After throwing a pick 6, making it 27-0 with 2:19, that was almost all. Bukulcious got a couple of pass deflections, and Jensen was all over the place. On defense. Catherine would run for 10 and then throw to Holly for 20, where unfortunately she got a bit shaken up. She got hit relatively hard there. If you're listening, Miss Holly, I hope you're feeling a little bit better. And then after that, though, Highlands Ranch would throw an interception, and that was all she wrote, really. After that, though, we would have Arapahoe's side of this game. Big bounce back win after, not blowing the lead, it wasn't too much, but after the second half of a tough game against Mountain View, a top 25 team in the country. When we're looking at it, Fogler would pass to LaDuff for a first down, and then Fogler ran for herself. On defense, Kelly got a pass deflection and then a sack, while Padilla returned the punt for 10, while Fogler threw to Bradley for a 40-yard touchdown, making it 6-0 with 28 seconds left in the first quarter. Padilla was violent with her next pass deflection, and then Izzy Usagani got a very good tackle while sliding before LaDuff caught her second pick of the day for 15 yards. Bradley got another first down through the air, and then Fogler threw to Padilla for 12 before getting the ball to Ugasani, who then, in turn, dove after turning for the touchdown here. Very, very good play here by Usagani. This made it 14-0 with 3:51 to go in the half. Kelly got a sack, and then Michaela Jacob forced a turnover on downs. On D, Daisy Padilla got a sack heading into halftime, and then in the third quarter, Fogler threw to Catawaller for 15. And she kept making an impact, Catawaller that is, with a long punt and then a pick for 20 yards on return. After a pass to LaDuff, it was a 21-0 game, and then Lizzie Padilla caught a pick 6 to make it 27-0 with 2:19 to go in the third. With more good defense, an Aniston Hill tackle for loss, an Usagami tackle for a turnover on downs, and an Usagani pick, and that was it for this game, with Arapahoe winning 27-0. And then before Arapahoe had to leave, there was one player that I saw all over the field all day, punting, getting picks, getting touchdowns, getting tackles, running the ball, receiving the ball, basically everything but throwing it. And I was really impressed with this player. I would be surprised if she doesn't make an all-state team. It is Hannah Catawaller. So, take it away.
This is Gideon here with Hannah Cadwallader from Arapahoe High School. Now, Hannah, you went one-on-one on the day, but you played the closest half against the number 26 team in the country that anyone has so far this season. How do you feel about playing Mountain View that close, and how do you think that play is going to affect you for the rest of the season?
I think we had a good shot at playing equally. They were a really tough team. They played really well. They had some great plays. I think they were just a little faster than us, and us making plays, we just didn't get there in time.
When we're looking at this team, you're one of the few seniors on a very underclassmen-heavy squad. Unfortunately, you won't be able to see the next few years of development, but how do you think your experience and leadership is helping to influence these younger players through the next couple of years?
I just try to have a positive attitude every day, and if there's a game going kind of under, then I try to pick everyone up and not get dragged into that kind of pressure, that negative pressure, and like having positive practices and practices that are going to help us in our games, I think are really helpful, and I think are going to help us in future years playing.
You made plays left, right, and center today. You had interceptions, you had touchdowns. What was your overall favorite moment of the day here for Arapahoe flag football?
I think there were a couple good ones. Alexa Ledeff had some really great interceptions, and Izzy Ugasani, I think is how you say her last name. She had a great interception during our last game to kind of end it off on a high note. But yeah, I think our second game was overall really, really well, and we picked it up from the first game, and we learned from our mistakes, and we worked towards a great game.
Thank you very much for taking the time to speak with me, Hannah. And I mean, you folks heard it there first. She's well, every time I ask that question, what was your favorite moment of today? People usually answer something that they did, or a moment that they, not that it wasn't a moment you took part in, but like a pass tipped that ended up in an interception if they're not the ones that made the pick. But if you were listening, you heard Hannah just not talk about her stuff at all. She talked about, oh, Izzy had a good pick. Alexa had a good pick. Like, from my experience, that is some good leadership, making sure that people understand, listen, I may be one of the top players on this team, but that does not mean that I had all the good moments, which, breath of fresh air, if you ask me. After that, though, we do find ourselves on the last game of the day, the shortest game of the day, which was Mountain View versus Highlands Ranch. Honestly, one of the bigger blowouts I have ever seen. Like, this was bad. This was bad. So, I'm just going to get it started with Highlands Ranch here. Now, unfortunately, there's not much to say. They allowed a touchdown in the first two plays of defense. 10 minutes left in the first quarter, made it 0-7, and then they threw a pick, which led to another touchdown, and then another, and all of a sudden you're in a 21-0 hole less than halfway through the first quarter. After a punt, there was another Mountain Lion touchdown, making it 0-27 for Highlands Ranch. Catherine, she would run for the first down of the game, and then 15 more about midway through the second quarter. More touchdowns were allowed in the third, and then all of a sudden, the game is at 47-0 at the end of the third quarter, which is kind of wild. And I know it sounds like I skipped a bunch, and that's kind of because I did, because not much notable happened here for Highlands Ranch except getting scored on, unfortunately. McLeod would gain 15 yards on a pitch, and then Aubrey Walsh would get a pass deflection before the Falcons would allow another touchdown, and then one more as time expired to lose 53-0 in this game. And that last touchdown, it was a 54-yarder, completely missed the flag pole on that last pass, on that last drive. Ultimately, not a very good showing for Highlands Ranch, but honestly, at a certain point, you just do what you can here. The Falcons just did their best, and they were gassed after that game against Arapahoe. However, this Mountain View squad would be well rested, having had about an hour off, and they started with a Meg Hidalgo sack, with Premer then rushing for 20. Premer then threw to Ellie Harper for a 10-yard tutty to go up 7-0 with 2 minutes having passed in the game. After a Finley pick, Artis would run for 10, and then there would be a Finley to Premer touchdown to go up 14-0 with 4 minutes gone in the first quarter. Marks would pick 6 that made it 21-0, and this game was out of hand with less than half the first quarter gone. It was about 6:02 on the board there. And then, Finley would punt return for 25 yards, and the team added another touchdown, so then it was 27-0. Finley threw to Marks for another touchdown, and then Premer threw to Harper for 23, where Macias ran for 15. Premer threw to Finley for another touchdown, and all of a sudden it's 41-0 entering the fourth quarter. Artis got 2 pass deflections on a drive, and then Premer rushed for the 45-yard touchdown, and all of a sudden we are at 47-0 with 9 minutes left. Kieran Knowles, I feel bad saying this, but some good offensive plays, but obviously garbage time. But the big play in this fourth quarter, Kieran Knowles would end up throwing to Cume Smith for a 54-yard touchdown as the clock expired, making it 53-0. Some of the underclassmen getting in, scoring in this game, getting varsity experience. I really, really like that for this team, just being able to build on that, because this is a senior-heavy squad. They are number 1 ranked. If they win state, it doesn't matter how many seniors are on the team, but it is going to be interesting to see how this team builds moving forward, and both Smith and Knowles are large parts of that. However, a large part of the present, and in my opinion, the best overall playmaker from the day for Mountain View High School, well, technically, you'll hear in a minute from Berthoud, but it's going to be Mia Artis. Just all around, managed to get more than her fair share of sacks, rushing yards, receiving yards, picks, tackles. It felt like Artis was just everywhere over the course of this day. So I am going to pass it over to myself, because I was able to get an interview with Mia Artis after this game against Highlands Ranch. So take it away, Me.
What's up? This is Gideon here with Mia Artis from Mountain View High School. Well, first of all, Mia, I know that this team is an amalgamation of 7 different schools across northern Colorado. Do you go to Mountain View, or where are you from?
No, I actually go to Berthoud High School.
Oh, very good. Down with the Spartans.
Yeah.
So when we're thinking about this team, one might think that it's a bit tough to develop team chemistry with players from 7 different schools in this area. How have you found it trying to get this team into a cohesive unit and into, a team over the past couple of weeks?
Really, to be honest, it hasn't been that difficult at all. We all just kind of click with each other. Like, we're on the same wavelength. We have a lot of fun with each other, so I think it's been really good and easy. So
Very good. And today, you guys had your closest half so far of the season against Arapahoe, and a large part of that was, unfortunately, 14 penalties in that first half. But you were able to clean it up, only 4 penalties in the second half. What were you guys talking about during halftime to turn it around and make sure that it was your way the rest of the way through that game?
our coaches just told us to keep our cool and play our game and make sure that we play the way we want to play and don't go down to the other levels, and just make sure that we play our game. So
very good. And as an individual, you had a great day all around. You had touchdowns, you had a pick in there, you were getting plenty of pressure, pass deflections, this, that, and the other, it felt like. What would you say is your favorite moment of the game today for you?
I'd have to say my pick at the beginning of our Arapahoe game. It felt really good. I really liked that pick on defense. So.
And when it comes to getting those different levels of pressure on different levels of the defense, and both getting up close and helping stop short gains and in the longer gain with pass deflections, what were you seeing both from Highlands Ranch and Arapahoe today that allowed you to get the type of pressure that you did?
I think it's really just reading the play and reading the player's eyes to make sure that you're seeing where the ball is going, and I think that I don't know, you just gotta practice, I guess.
It doesn't hurt as much.
All right, and to close it out, when we are looking at Monday, you're going to be facing off against the North Glen Norsemen, a 5A squad, but you guys knocked off 2 5A squads today. How are you feeling for that, and what's your message to the rest of the state about Mountain View football?
We're feeling good and we're ready. It's just another game and we're going to win, so.
All right, very good. Thank you very much, Mia. Hope you have a good one. Best of luck.
And thank you very much, Mia. They will be facing, the Mountain Lions, that is, will be facing the North Glen Norsemen on Monday at 6:30 p.m. at Mountain View High School. The Norsemen have already faced the Mountain Lions in a tournament in Loveland back on the 31st of August. That was a 26-6 win for the Mountain View Mountain Lions. There's a reason they are number 1 or number 2 in 4A, depending who you talk to. And then after that is going to be an away game at Aurora Central, home versus Legacy, home versus Douglas County, home versus Ponderosa, away at Aurora West College Prep, and home versus away versus Valor Christian. So a very long, arduous schedule for this team. I'm considering making it out for that Legacy game. I believe that is going to be senior night. But I hope that everybody listening here has a great day. Stay safe. Make sure you're drinking all your water. Make sure that you are staying hydrated. Drive safe, because people are getting crazy out there. And it is getting to the holiday season. So make sure that everybody is okay when you get home. But all around, this is Gideon again. You'll catch me here soon on the flip side. And you are listening to Playmakers Corner. Peace.
What is good, y'all? This is Gino with the Playmakers Corner podcast, and it is time to recap a rematch of the 2023 Flag Football State Championship between the Arvada West Wildcats and the Cherry Creek Bruins. The Bruins were hosting this one, and they were definitely looking to get revenge from last year's state championship in this game. And this one came all the way down to the wire, folks, all the way down to the last couple of drives. So let's not waste any more time and go ahead and jump right into this recap. Starting us off in the first quarter here, we are early in the first quarter. I missed the first few plays of the game, but it is Arvada West ball to start us off. It is 2nd and 3 here for the Wildcats, 0-0 early in the first quarter. On second down, an incomplete pass from Sailor Swanson makes it 3rd and 3. And then on 3rd and short, a check down goes to Katie Hufford, who is stopped by Sophia Ball just short of the first down. On 4th and inches, Sailor Swanson hits Sarah Walker in stride on a slant for a first down across midfield. It will be 1st and 17 after that first down. Swanson scrambles right on first down, and her flag is pulled at the line of scrimmage by Caitlin Schatz. Big time play there by Schatz. On second down, Swanson scrambles for 10 yards, and then on 3rd and 7, Molly Shellpepper catches a pass over the middle and takes advantage of a missed flagpole to give the Wildcats that first down in the red zone here. And then on 1st and 10, Sailor Swanson lobs one up to a wide open Molly Shellpepper in the end zone for the Arvada West touchdown. The Wildcats now lead 6-0 after the extra point was no good, with 6:53 left here in the first quarter. It will be 1st and 6 here for Cherry Creek following that score from Arvada West. The junior Addie Beck is actually in here at QB as she hits Sophia Ball in stride over the middle for a first down for the first pass of the game here. On 1st and 18, Addie Beck scrambles for a nice gain near midfield. It will be 2nd and 2. And then a swing pass is stopped short of the first down. And then on 3rd and 1 here, a short pass goes to Megan Chen for the first down across midfield. On 1st and 15, Beck throws a dot to Chen again, who dives along the sideline for the catch to make it 2nd and 6 here for the Bruins. On 2nd and 6, Addie Beck scrambles for the first down into the red zone to make it 1st and 17. And then following an incomplete pass and a scramble, Arvada West will call timeout here with 2:19 left in the first quarter. On 3rd down, Sarah Walker bats down a pass intended for the center Sophia Ball, so it will be 4th and medium here for the Bruins, and they will go for it. On 4th down, Jalen Nelson is wide open as Addie Beck finds her on 4th down for the Cherry Creek touchdown here. And then Molly DeRiggi catches the extra point to give Cherry Creek the lead here, 7-6 with 1:57 left in the first quarter. 1st and 6 here for Arvada West following that score. A slant to Santana Pena gets the first down. And then on 1st and 20, a short pass to Sarah Walker is stopped by Ania Chambers for no gain. On 2nd and 20, Ashley Sands gets a big-time sack here to make it 3rd and 26 here for the Arvada West offense. And then a check down to Katie Hufford is shut down by Sophia Ball. So it will be 4th and 20 here, and the Wildcats will punt it. And that will take us to the end of the first quarter, folks. Cherry Creek leads Arvada West 7-6 in this state championship rematch from last year. It will be 1st and 4 near midfield here for Cherry Creek following that punt. Offsides on Arvada West would actually give Cherry Creek the first down across midfield, so it will be 1st and 19 here to start the drive. A deep pass to Molly DeRiggi is overthrown with good coverage there by Alyssa Roberts. And then DeRiggi takes a pass and avoids a flagpole for a nice gain on the next play to make it 3rd and 7. On 3rd down, Alyssa Roberts gets a big-time sack to make it 4th and 17. On 4th and 17, Cherry Creek elects to go for it here as Sarah Walker picks off the deep pass over the middle, and she takes that one near midfield to give Arvada West the ball back. But Arvada West would actually end up turning it over on downs here on their next drive, so nothing would happen there as Campbell Metcalf got a sack and Ania Chambers shut down a couple of plays to force that turnover on downs. So it will be 1st and 8 here for Cherry Creek, who also would end up turning the ball over on downs here. That Arvada West triple rush is definitely starting to weigh down on the Cherry Creek offense. It is very hard to get any sort of plays downfield when you have 3 rushers coming at you on any given play. So it will be 1st and 4 here for Arvada West with around 2 minutes left following that turnover on downs. Sailor Swanson scrambles for 2 yards on 1st down, and then an incomplete pass is nearly picked off by the safety Jalen Nelson to make it 3rd and 2. On 3rd down, a slant over the middle to Sarah Walker gets them the first down, with the Cherry Creek coach arguing that the ball hit the ground. But it will be 1st and 20 here. Following an incomplete pass, Caitlin Schatz stops a Swanson scramble after 3 yards, so it will be 3rd and 17 here as Arvada West calls timeout with 1:46 left in the first half. Coming out of the timeout, Sailor Swanson steps up and flicks a perfect ball down the sideline to Molly Shellpepper in stride on the wheel route as Shellpepper goes all the way for the touchdown. And the extra point was shut down here, so it will be 12-7 with 1:38 left. Arvada West takes the lead. And they would actually call timeout before Cherry Creek would start their drive with 1:38 left in the half. But it'll be 1st and 6 for Cherry Creek following that timeout as Arvada West rushes 3 to force a quick incompletion. And then on 2nd and 6, Danica Rodriguez-Gonzalez shuts down a check down to Jalen Nelson to make it 3rd and 1 with just over a minute left in the half. On 3rd down, Nelson gets the check down again, and this time she gets the first down as Arvada West rushes 3 there. On 1st and 18, Cherry Creek calls timeout here with 52 seconds left here in the half. Coming out of the timeout on 1st and 18, Addie Beck rolls out right and launches a rocket to Molly DeRiggi along the sideline as she takes off and goes all the way for a Cherry Creek touchdown in the waning minutes of the first half. It is 13-12 with 38 seconds left here after the failed extra point. Cherry Creek calls timeout following their score with 38 seconds left, and it is 1st and 6 for Arvada West following the timeout. A perfect throw to Sarah Walker deep over the middle goes for a first down to make it 1st and 7 near midfield. And then on 1st and 7, Jalen Nelson picks off the pass as Arvada West was in hurry-up mode there as they had no timeouts left. So that will give Cherry Creek yet another chance to score here before the end of the half. It is 1st and 5 here near the red zone with 16 seconds left in the half for Cherry Creek. Lindley McReynolds gets the flagpole as Addie Beck is flushed out left. And then on 2nd and 5, Cherry Creek calls timeout here, and that will be their final timeout of the half with 10 seconds left. On the final play of the half, a pass over the middle intended for Sophia Ball is complete as she tries to pitch it back to Molly DeRiggi as she runs by, but it would fall incomplete. And that would take us to halftime, folks, as the Cherry Creek Bruins are leading the Arvada West Wildcats 13-12 in a very tightly contested matchup here. It will be 1st and 6 here for Creek to start the second half. A pass over the middle goes to the center, Sophia Ball, who then hands it off to Molly DeRiggi, who's running by for a big-time first down. 1st and 18 here. Yet Cherry Creek is actually the first team that I have seen this year that is starting to use that kind of reverse lateral type of style of play, and I love to see it. I think a lot more teams should be able to use that. But that is neither here nor there, as Alyssa Alberts gets a big-time sack here on 1st and 18, and it is a huge, huge game from Alberts, stepping up big time here to make it 2nd and 23. On 2nd down, a pitch to Campbell Metcalf goes for a nice gain. And then on 3rd and 10, a swing pass to Jalen Nelson is nearly picked off by Alyssa Alberts, but Nelson still somehow makes the catch to make it 4th and 1 near midfield. On 4th down, Addie Beck scrambles right, and that gets the Bruins the first down just barely, and it will be 1st and 20. On 1st and 20, Addie Beck scrambles for 3 yards as Arvada West rushed 3 there to make it 2nd and 17. And then on 2nd down, Sophia Ball is wide open for a 12-yard gain to make it 3rd and 5 near the red zone. On 3rd down, Sophia Ball makes another catch for a first down to put Creek in the red zone to make it 1st and 19 here. Cherry Creek definitely taking their time on this drive and making that Arvada West defense absolutely grind on every single play. Following the first down, Beck steps up under pressure and throws one just short of Ania Chambers, and that one would have gone for a touchdown, but instead it is 2nd and 19. Constant pressure from Arvada West is forcing a quick game from Cherry Creek as the short pass goes for 2 yards. On 3rd and 17, roughing the passer makes it 1st and 10 in the red zone on that next snap, as Cherry Creek has a prime opportunity here to add to their lead. A check down goes to Jalen Nelson for 3 yards, and then pressure from Alex Antil and Lindley McReynolds as Addie Beck is flushed out right and her pass falls incomplete. So it will be 3rd and 7 here. On 3rd down, Isabella Tehran bats down a pass over the middle intended for Sophia Ball. So it will be 4th and 7 here for Cherry Creek, and they will obviously be going for it here. On 4th down, a check down to Jalen Nelson is shut down by none other than Alyssa Alberts, who might be the defensive player of the game so far. So that will be a clutch turnover on downs here. But despite that being a clutch turnover on downs, that was a 7-minute and 40-second drive there by the Cherry Creek offense. And Sarah Walker and Sailor Swanson were both out there on defense. So you could say that they were gassed after a drive like that. So I wouldn't say it's a complete loss for Cherry Creek there. Let's see what Arvada West does after that big-time defensive stand. It will be 1st and 5 here for them to start off their drive. A slant to Molly Shellpepper goes for 4 yards, and then another slant to Centena Pena as she takes that one for a nice gain near midfield. It will be 1st and 3. On 1st down, Swanson spins out of multiple flagpoles on a scramble, plus a hold on the defense on the flagpole, makes it 1st and 16 all the way in the red zone. An unbelievable pass from Sailor Swanson to Molly Shellpepper over a defender in a tight window on 1st down makes it 2nd and 5 here for the Wildcats. On 2nd down, Sailor Swanson rolls out left, surveys, and finds Alexis Mays on a throw across her body for the touchdown. Arvada West now takes their lead back 18-13 with 1:59 left in the 3rd quarter, and the extra point was no good, so that will be our score here. 1st and 6 for Cherry Creek, down 5. A short pass goes for a yard, and then Sophia Ball nearly makes a one-handed grab to make it 3rd and 5 here. A quick out to Molly DeRiggi under pressure is just short of the first, so it will be 4th and 1 here. And Cherry Creek is going for it, folks. On fourth down, a quick pass to Sophia Ball over the middle gets them the first down just barely. It will be 1st and 19, and that will take us to the end of the third quarter as Arvada West leads Cherry Creek in this very, very good game, 18-13. Let's go ahead and see how this game ends. It will be 1st and 19 for Creek to start off the final quarter of the game. Molly Shellpepper shuts down a scramble after 4 yards, and then Alex Antill gets a big-time sack to make it 3rd and 20. On third down, Antill gets another sack on the very next snap, but roughing the passer there. It makes it a replay of third down and a 10-yard gain. It will be 3rd and 10 here as Arvada West calls timeout with 10 minutes and 42 seconds left in the game. Following the timeout, Addie Beck lobs one deep to Ania Chambers, but it is short as it falls incomplete. 4th and 10. And folks, Cherry Creek is going for it yet again. On 4th and 10, Addie Beck steps up under pressure and flicks a perfect ball to Ania Chambers in between the defenders in stride, and Ania Chambers goes all the way for the touchdown on 4th down to take the lead late in this game. It is now 20-18 after Sophia Ball caught the extra point with 9:58 left in the game. It will be 1st and 6 here for Arvada West following the score from Cherry Creek. A quick pass to Sarah Walker gets them the first down. And then on 1st and 20, Swanson gets smoked by a defender as she finds Molly Shellpepper in stride on an out route. And then that roughing the passer on top of that makes it 1st and 17 across midfield. On 1st and 17, Sophia Ball gets a clutch flagpole on a check down. And then on 2nd and 16, Campbell Metcalf gets the flagpole on a Swanson scramble. So it will be 3rd and 14 here. On 3rd and long, Megan Chen gets a flagpole on the check down to Katie Hufford to make it 4th and 10 with just under 7 minutes left here in the game. On 4th and 10, Swanson lobs up a jump ball to Sarah Walker, who mosses 2 defenders for a massive game-saving first down in the red zone. And then there was pass interference on top of that, so it will be 1st and 9 here for Arvada West with a prime opportunity to take their lead back in this state championship rematch. On 1st down, a slant to Santana Pena is stopped by Ashley Sands. And then on 2nd down, good coverage from Ania Chambers on the far side of the end zone to force an incompletion, so it will be 3rd and 4 here. On 3rd down, a quick out to Sarah Walker as she catches it out of the slot, but she is stopped just inches short of the end zone, so it will be 4th and inches here for Arvada West as they call timeout with 4:50 left in the game here. Coming out of the timeout, Sailor Swanson takes the snap, and she has a receiver open, but the ball is dropped. So that is a potential back-breaking turnover on downs for the Arvada West offense, down 5 points. Let's go ahead and see if Cherry Creek can take advantage. It is 1st and 20 for Cherry Creek on their own goal line. On 1st down, a deep ball to Ania Chambers is barely overthrown as the Cherry Creek coach begs for pass interference there. And then offsides on the next snap makes it 2nd and 15. Cherry Creek tries to run that short pass over the middle and then a reverse to DeRigi, but Sarah Walker is there to shut it down, so it will be 3rd and 10. On 3rd and 10, Addie Beck's pass to Ania Chambers is on the absolute money as Chambers goes the distance for her 2nd touchdown of the half. And that, folks, could potentially put this game completely away as Jalen Nelson catches the extra point to make it 27-18 with 3:05 left in the game. 1st and 6 here for Arvada West, down 9. A slant to Sarah Walker is stopped by Caitlin Schatz to make it 2nd and 3, and then a pass is dropped here. And then on 3rd down, Molly Shellpepper takes a dig route in stride for a big gain to make it 1st and 20 on midfield. On 1st and 20, Jalen Nelson picks off the pass to completely put this game away. That is Nelson's 2nd pick of the game as she did everything in this game to help Cherry Creek get this win. And that is sweet Sweet revenge for Cherry Creek as they get their first win over Arvada West in program history, 27-18, in one of the best games we'll see this season in tackle or flag. And before we wrap up this recap, folks, I want to go ahead and give some final thoughts here on both teams and just the game we just saw. So for Cherry Creek, I would say Bruin stock is through the roof right now after that big-time revenge win over Arvada West in a rematch of last year's state championship. The Bruins are absolutely stacked with talent all over the field, including a QB in Addie Beck, who was a relative unknown for us at the podcast going into this game. Since the last time we saw them, it was Ania Chambers at QB. Beck is an absolutely dynamic playmaker who stepped up big time in this game to get the win over Arvada West. She made some huge plays on late downs, including 2 touchdowns on 4th down, showing that she is as clutch and confident as they come. She has a pair of elite receivers as well in Ania Chambers and Molly DeRiggi to throw to, with both these players having some insanely clutch touchdowns in this win. Beck also has the halfback Jalen Nelson and the center Sophia Ball as very reliable targets to look out for as well. I think the biggest thing that makes Creek such a threat is that all 4 of those receivers that I just listed are also major contributors on defense as well. DeRiggi and Chambers are a pair of top DBs in the state, while Jalen Nelson caught the game-ending interception this game at safety, and she had 2 interceptions in total. And then Sophia Ball was getting clutch flagpole after clutch flagpole at middle linebacker in this game. With Addie Beck now at QB for the Bruins, Cherry Creek's offense is now taken to a whole new level that no team in the state wants to face. Now for Arvada West, I would say missing Harper Tillman proved to be a huge key in this loss for Arvada West. I honestly don't think Arvada West would have given up those big plays on late downs throughout the game if Tillman was out there roaming the middle of the field. Outside of that fact, I think Arvada West still put themselves in a position to win that game. Sailor Swanson and Sarah Walker were connecting all game like usual. And then you had Molly Shellpepper, who stepped up big time, getting 2 touchdowns in this game. This one ultimately came down to execution in the clutch, and it just so happened that Cherry Creek was ready to execute in almost every clutch scenario that they were given. The Wildcats are going to be more than fine this season, especially considering the fact that they have made light work of every other team that they have faced besides Cherry Creek and Mountain Vista. They just need to settle in here and figure out why they are struggling to win these close games against the top 2 teams in the state. And that, folks, will do it here for this recap. This is Gino with the Playmakers Corner podcast, and I want to thank you all for listening, and I will see you all next week. Peace out.
Alrighty, thank you Gideon and Gino for those recaps here. While we did go to a good number of games last week, still a lot of games we were not able to, so let's go ahead and run down and talk about all of these games. Starting with the games from Tuesday, September 10th here, we had Denver East face off with Bruce Randolph, and this was not a close one. Denver East took care of them 40-12. Up next, we got Denver North facing off with Thomas Jefferson, and Denver North ran away with this one 40-7 in a big-time win for them. Moving on, we have a big 5A matchup between Chaparral and Regis Jesuit, and Chaparral wins 26-12 in a pretty crazy game here. It was actually tied, I want to say, at 14-14, but then Chaparral in the 4th quarter would get 2 pick sixes. That's right, 2 to go ahead and win the game in the final minutes of the 4th. So a big time effort for them. Got a couple of stats here. Let's start with Regis Jesuit here. Nala Barnes, 20 of 31, 139 yards, 1 touchdown. Unfortunately, those 2 picks as well there. Also had 4 yards rushing here. At receiver, we have a couple receivers, but the standout freshman, Caitlin Bueller, she had 6 receptions for 58 yards, leading the team here. Catherine Uri, 6 receptions for 23 yards and a touchdown, grabbing the lone touchdown pass there. On defense, Mate Barnes and Jasmine Lugo each had 5 tackles. Hummertime, a senior for them, had an interception, but that was just not quite enough. For Chaparral, Zoe Fink, the freshman, continues to play well, 12 for 22, 112 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 pick. Sophia O'Donnell, the junior and one of the lead rushers in the state, 7 carries for 101 yards and a touchdown for them. Jamie Baum, once more, the senior wide receiver, led them with 2 receptions for 42 yards. Greenstreet and Valverde each had a receiving touchdown each as well for that squad. The senior Jaden Greenstreet would have 9 tackles, which led the team. The junior Brantley and the sophomore McWilliams had a sack each, and then it was Sophie Matthews, the senior, and then it was Molly McWilliams, the sophomore, who each had those interceptions that would give them the win in this one. So a thrilling win as Chaparral remains undefeated. Moving on here, we got a battle of private schools, Valor Christian versus Colorado Springs Christian, and Valor wins big 39-7. Faith Prinzo, almost a perfect game, 18 of 21, 237 passing yards, 5 touchdowns for them. Also, 127 rushing yards in this big time effort. Her sister, Savannah Prinzo, 2 receptions, 82 yards and a touchdown. Ellie Johnson, the sophomore, 3 receptions, 49 yards and a touchdown. Savannah Khan, 3 for 33 and a touchdown. And Alexis Wood, 3 for 25 and a touchdown. Abby Brown, the sophomore, was their lead tackler, and then she also had an interception that sophomore did. So there you go, Valor taking care of Colorado Springs Christian. Then we had Legend face off with Highlands Ranch, and they won big 36-0 here. Maddie Smolin, the junior, 16 of 22, 154 yards, 2 touchdowns to 1 pick, but she also had 4 carries for 59 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then Ava Gavi also had a rushing touchdown for them. It was Aislinn Corella, the senior, who led them in receiving, or I should say receptions, but she had 7 receptions for 48 yards and 2 touchdowns. On defense for them, Janine Norton, the junior, had 5 tackles. She also had a sack. Victoria Curdy, a sophomore, had 2 sacks. And then Ryan McTouche had an interception in that game. For Highlands Ranch here, the senior for them, that would be Catherine Apotheker, I want to say, was a tough 3 of 18, also had 14 rushing yards, not getting too much there. She also led in tackles, or co-led in tackles, I should say, with Addison McLeod for them, as it was a tough loss for Highlands Ranch. Moving on here, we are going to Wednesday, September 11th. We have a number of games from this one here. Let's go ahead and start with Denver West versus Lincoln. West taking care of Lincoln 32-0. Then we have Thornton playing Mountain Range here. And Thornton would go ahead and take down Mountain Range 24-18, as I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that should be their second win actually of the season. They had one over Denver East, which is interesting there for Thornton. So good for them. Legacy, though, would go ahead and bounce back and beat Aurora Central 21-0. Mountain View blast Gateway 56-0 here. Mason Premer, 10 of 13, 151 yards, 5 touchdowns. She also had a rushing touchdown in this one. There were receivers, Maya Artis, who had 2, Michaela Messias had 1, Kendall Finley had 1, Jessica Hopkins had 1, and then Ellie Harper had 1 in this massive win. Ellie Roberts led in tackles with 6, Maya Artis with an interception, Jessica Hopkins with an interception, as they went ahead and took care of Gateway relatively easy in that one right there. Moving on, we have North Glen versus Aurora West College Prep Academy here, and North Glen plays extremely well. Sydney Reese, or I should say the final score, sorry. North Glen wins 60-0, and then Sydney Reese, 21 of 28, 324 yards, 7 touchdowns. Also had a rushing touchdown in that one, looking really good. Evelyn Hymas, the sophomore, 10 receptions, 178 yards, 3 touchdowns. Cooper Trinkle, the senior, 7 of 75 for 2 touchdowns. Eliana Carpio, 2 receptions, 46 yards and a touchdown. And then Fujinami, the sophomore, with a receiving touchdown for them. Madeline almost, had 6 tackles. She also had 4 sacks. And then this defense produced 4 picks between Fujinami, Martinez, Tiscarino, Trinkle, and Rodriguez as they go ahead and take care of business. Speaking of taking care of business, that's what Northfield did against Denver West as they went ahead and won 36-0. Cherry Creek would play Columbine here, now in the top 10, I'm pretty sure. And interesting enough, Addie Beck, their starting quarterback from last year, got the start over the senior Chambers, which is interesting, but she lit it up against Columbine, 17 of 22, 302 yards and 6 touchdowns, also 34 rushing yards and a touchdown in that one, as Cherry Creek would win 38-19. I don't think I said that, so I wanted to make sure I said that. As far as receiving goes, Molly Durigi, she continues her reign of terror, 12 receptions for 101 yards and 2 touchdowns. Sophia Ball, 9 receptions for 53 yards and a touchdown. And then Ashley Sands had a touchdown. Brooklyn Feder had a touchdown in this one as well. Durigi would lead this team with 8 tackles. And then they would have 4 sacks from the defense from Keeney, Feeder, Metcalf, and Brown. And then 3 interceptions from Durigi, Ball, and Chambers as they take care of Columbine. For Columbine here, their senior quarterback, Jordan Washington, she went 15 of 18, 185 yards, 1 touchdown to 2 picks. She also had 55 rushing yards for 2 touchdowns in this one. Not playing too bad. Courtney Brock, 5 receptions, 43 yards, and a touchdown for them. As far as tackles go, Stella Paxson, Kaylin Karash, and Gabriel Roche each had 5 tackles. And then, yeah, I'm pretty sure that is it here. That's actually a pretty close score. I mean, I guess it looks closer now, but it was 25-6 at halftime. And then it became 38-6 at halftime. Columbine would score 13 in the 4th at the very end there to make it semi-close, but still they could not pull it off. Moving on here, Littleton takes care of Kennedy 52-14, a big win for Littleton there. Ava Palmer, the freshman quarterback, 10 of 18 for 137 yards, 4 touchdowns to only 1 interception. Ashley Plazola, the senior, had 2 carries for 30 yards and a touchdown. And then I think it's Loshletha Fawn had 2 rushing touchdowns for them. As far as receiving goes, Olivia May, Mariah Stitt, Ren Freeman, and Ava Martin all had touchdowns in this one. Receiving touchdowns, that is. Sierra Wilburn and Olivia May tying in tackles. Ren Freeman and Heimbigner, I want to say, each had a sack. And then Olivia May, Annie Fox, and Home Denoma, the freshman, each had an interception as they take care of Kennedy in that game there. Moving on back down to the Springs for a minute, we had Coronado versus Vanguard as Coronado wins 27-12 over Vanguard. Ella LaChance, the junior, 8 of 9 for 97 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. She also had 77 rushing yards and a touchdown. The junior for them, it would be Tatiana Gonzalez, had 51 rushing yards and a touchdown on the ground. Sydney Ramirez was their lead receiver. The junior had 5 receptions for 61 yards. And then Gonzalez and Leilani Eilert each had a receiving touchdown. On defense, Kennedy Berry led with 10 tackles for the junior. Lyric Anger, she had 2 sacks. And then Lily Rice, the sophomore, had an interception as Coronado takes care of Vanguard. Then we have Northfield taking care of Lincoln, just barely though, 14-8 in kind of a close one there. Douglas County would escape in a close one as well, 27-20 here. Jillian Cabral, the junior, 12 of 22, 139 yards, 3 touchdowns, but two picks. She had 6 carries for 90 rushing yards as well as their lead passer and rusher. On the receiving side, Riley Covert, the sophomore, 2 receptions, 72 yards and a touchdown. Harmony Allen and then Addis Limp also had receiving touchdowns in this one. And then it was the junior here, Maria Dikolenko, the junior. She had 13 tackles, leading this team once more. She also had a sack in this game. Ellie Bowers had 2 sacks, and then Aloni De Leon had a sack as well. And then Harmony Allen had a pick, and then junior, I want to say Alexandria Smith also had an interception in what ended up being a very close game against Rock Canyon. But Douglas County kind of rolling here with a couple wins in a row. That would actually mark their 4th straight win in a row in that game. So there you go. Then Elizabeth, they would play Coronado and win a close one, 14-0. All points coming in the first half here. Let's start with Coronado here. Ella LaChance, 6 of 15, 58 yards, 2 unfortunate interceptions. Sydney Ramirez still led in receiving, 5 for 55 yards. The only receiver to have any catches or stats in this game, which I think is interesting. Junior Kennedy Berry had 13 tackles, and then she also had two interceptions in this one, but Coronado obviously not able to pull it out. Abigail Monchak, the senior, she went 7 of 15, 58 yards, 1 touchdown to 2 picks there. Emma Gould, the sophomore, 13 carries for 66 yards. London Machado with a touchdown. And then Gwen Hackett was their lead receiver, 2 receptions for 25 yards and a touchdown. Freshman Olivia Nelson led them on defense with 5 tackles. And then it was Angulo Alfaro, Emma Gould, and Gwen Hackett, who each had a sack, and Olivia Nelson with 2 interceptions as well, which is pretty big time there. Only a freshman for Elizabeth over there, as Elizabeth wins 14-0 over Coronado. Then Elizabeth would eventually play Vanguard, who they would just shut down 32-0 here. Abigail Monchak, the senior, 9 of 17, 95 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. Then it was Machado and Gould with each having a rushing touchdown. Kodey Bauer had a receiving touchdown. Gwen Hackett with the receiving touchdown. On defense, Gwen Hackett, the senior, and Jennifer Martinez led with 4 tackles each. And then Gwen Hackett and Jennifer Martinez each had an interception in this game, as they kind of had themselves a day against Vanguard. So there you go. That wraps up all the Wednesday games. Let's move on to Thursday. Only 3 games here, but Thursday, September 12th. Let's start with Highlands Ranch versus Manual here. Highlands Ranch wins a close one, 7-6. Both teams would score in the 4th quarter here, but for Highlands Ranch, they would get their extra point, as Isabella Holly would be the one to score that extra point for them as they win a thriller. But let's go ahead and get to the stats. Let's start with Manual here. Kaylee Walker, the freshman, 10 of 18, 93 yards, 1 pick. As far as receiving goes, it was Zariah Travis, the junior, who led with 3 for 31, with the freshman right behind her, Martin, who had 2 for 30. Then it was LaKayla Byers, the freshman, who led in tackles with 8. Zaria Travis and Kayla Valina had a sack each, and then LaKayla Byers, the freshman, had a pick, and then Kaylee Walker had a pick as well. Another freshman. A lot of freshmen for this Manual team, but I think that's a good thing in my opinion. But still losing kind of a tough one there. For Highlands Ranch, for Highlands Ranch, their quarterback, Catherine Apotheker, she went 11 of 16, 114 yards, 1 touchdown to only 2 picks. Addison McLeod, 64 rushing yards in this one. Isabella Holly, 6 receptions for 48 yards. And then McLeod had 1 big reception, a 46-yard touchdown here that helped them win the game. Then it came down on defense, to Aubrey Walsh, who had 6 tackles. Mia Apotheker had an interception as well. I think maybe related. I mean, they have to be related to Catherine Apotheker. So there you go. That's interesting to see there. As Highlands Ranch takes care of Manual 7-6. Moving on, we have Mullen playing Thomas Jefferson, and Mullen wins 46-12 in a big time game against them. No passing stats here. I don't know why. Or I guess no passing stats from the quarterbacks. There's receiving stats, so they obviously threw the ball. But let's just go ahead and talk about what we have here. Steffi Thomas led in rushing yards, 6 for 56. Aaliyah Garcia, the senior, had 2 touchdowns in this one, rushing touchdowns, that is. As far as receiving goes, Riker Thomas had 2 touchdowns. June Watkins had 1 receiving touchdown. On defense, it would be the sophomore Brooklyn Stathis, who had 8 tackles. She also had an interception, while Lily Evans and Anna Rose each had an interception each, as Mullen takes care of TJ 46-12. Moving on, we have Mountain Vista facing off with Grandview, and they win big, 35-7. Ariana Akey continues her run of dominance. The junior went 15 of 24, 241 passing yards, 5 passing touchdowns, 3 rushes, which is crazy, but for 82 rushing yards, which is even crazier there. Braylon Looney had herself a game in this one. 4 receptions, 93 yards, and a touchdown. Serena Reeder, the senior, had 4 receptions, 64 yards, and a touchdown. Isabel Vaillant, I want to say, had 2 for 24 and a touchdown. And then Liana Rivera, only 2 receptions, but both went for touchdowns. And she had 18 receiving yards as Mountain Vista's offense continues to hum. On defense, though, Kaylee Besh, the sophomore, had 5 tackles, leading them there. Liana Rivera had an interception as Mountain Vista stays undefeated. Now, going on to Friday the 13th, we got a lot of games here from the Springs, but a couple games up in Denver as well. Let's go ahead and hop into it. We have TCA, number 2 and 4A TCA, facing off with Elizabeth, and they beat them 35-7 here. No stats from TCA, which is kind of crazy. But for Elizabeth here, Monchak, 7 of 23, 96 yards, 1 touchdown, but 5 interceptions as this TCA defense was humming. As far as receiving goes, London Machado, 4 receptions, 81 yards, and a touchdown with a solid game there. Gwen Hackett and Angulo Alfaro with a sack each. And then Tia Vernon had 3 interceptions alone, but obviously not enough to beat TCA here. TCA having a 19-0 lead at half, and then they would not look back as they stay undefeated, I'm pretty sure. Then we had Chaparral face off with Eagle Crest. Speaking of undefeated, Chaparral stays that way, winning 34-0. Zoe Fink, 21 of 27, 125 yards, 3 touchdowns to 1 pick. Sophia O'Donnell, 12 carries, 166 yards, and a rushing touchdown. Also, Zoe Fink had 6 carries for 45 yards and a touchdown as well. On the receiving end here, Nicole Cook, 6 receptions, 41 yards, and a touchdown. Jamie Baum, 3 for 32 and a touchdown. And then Salem Sherman, 4 for 14 and a touchdown there. On defense, Sophia Matthews, Luna Leonard, and Molly McWilliams each had 2 tackles leading them. McWilliams with a sack. And then Landgren, Cochran Bryant, and Chloe Patrio each had an interception, combining for 3 as Chaparral takes care of Eagle Crest. Then we have an inner Colorado Springs matchup here between Doherty and Vista Ridge here. Both scores coming into third quarter. Doherty would outlast Vista Ridge 7-6 here. Let's start with Vista Ridge, though. Ariana Harris, the senior, 5 of 12, 112 yards, 2 unfortunate picks. As far as rushing goes, though, Brooklyn Kaiser, the senior, 3 for 42. Addison Vrana, 3 for 33. And then as far as receiving goes, Ashley, I think it's I'm definitely going to butcher that. I'm so sorry. Ashley Guao? That's not right. But she had 2 receptions for 92 yards, the sophomore there. I am butchering that. I am so sorry. On defense, though, Addison Vrana led with 8 tackles. And then as far as rushing goes, it would be Josadira Gonzalez, who had 4 sacks, followed by Kristen Quinn with a sack as well. For Doherty, Neela Thompson, the sophomore, 4 of 12, not super efficient, but 97 yards and a passing touchdown. No picks in that one. Their leading rusher was Alyssa Ramos, 12 carries for 60 yards, followed by Thompson, 10 for 23. And then their only touchdown was a pig. It looks like 70-yard touchdown from Leilani Daniels, who had that 1 reception for a touchdown. And then as far as receiving goes, it would be Galatia Gonzalez, who had 2 for 26, but that big touchdown definitely mattering in that one. Alyssa Ramos led with 9 tackles, Santi Keys with a sack, and then Neela Thompson had an interception. If I'm looking at the extra point, it looks like Alyssa Ramos got that extra point for Doherty, which ended up being the 1-point difference as they win 7-6 over Vista Ridge. Vista Ridge would then play Air Academy and then return the favor and win 7-6 by 1. run here. Ariana Harris, 7 of 15, 97 yards and 1 touchdown. Ashley G, the sophomore, 4 carries for 67 yards. She also had 3 receptions for 52 yards. There you go. Getting in some work there. Addison Vrana and it looks like here Josadira Gonzalez, both seniors, led in tackles with 6 each. Gonzalez with 3 sacks, Kristen Quinn with 2 sacks, and then Brooklyn Kaiser with a pick to end this one there. Following that, Doherty would then play Air Academy here, and they would take care of them 25-0. All scores coming in the second and third quarter here. Neela Thompson, 5 of 12, 56 yards, 1 touchdown. They were able to run the ball, though. Alyssa Ramos, 10 carries for 82 yards and 2 touchdowns. Santi Keys, 27 rushing yards and a touchdown there. And then it looks like Bridget Duffy, the senior, 2 receptions for 24 yards and a touchdown in that one. On defense for Doherty, it would be Madison Medlin Whittenborn, who led in tackles with 7. And then the freshman for them, that's Natalie Jackson Nunez, had a sack. And then Alyssa Ramos with another pick, having herself kind of a day here as they take care of Air Academy 25-0. Moving on here, we have Regis Jesuit versus Cherokee Trail, and Regis gets a huge win here, 44-0 here. Nala Barnes playing a very good game, 9 of 16, 95 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks for them, also 18 rushing yards. Then the freshman Ava Keene, 6 carries for 54 yards and a touchdown. Catherine Yuri, 2 for 34 and a receiving touchdown, followed by Alexia Toval, the senior, 3 for 22 and a touchdown, and then Paige Combs with a receiving touchdown. On defense here, it looks like Jasmine Lugo led with 5 tackles. She also had a sack. Isabella Jubis had a sack as well. And then as far as interceptions go, Ariel Sandoval Reed had a pick, and then Nala Barnes had 2 picks as they take care of Cherokee Trail 44-0. Moving on to the Saturday games, the ones that we were not able to recap. We have a lot of them, a good, I want to say majority of these games being played here. I'm going to try not to go over the stats of the games we already covered. Just make sure you go listen to the recap for that. Now, let's go ahead and hop into it. Eagle Crest takes care of Legacy 24-12 here. Legacy struggling in this one to get anything going. Rachel Jones with 2 receptions for 78 yards and a touchdown. And then Anna Martin and Hernandez each had an interception, but that was it as Eagle Crest takes care of them 24-12. Denver North would take care of Rangeview here 24-7. And then we have our games with Arapahoe. Then Ralston Valley with a big bounce back win, 62-0 over Lakewood here. Zoe Zoll, 11 of 15, 221 yards, 5 touchdowns, as she is looking to find her mojo back again, and it looks like she did. Kaylin Corkus also getting some snaps here, 7 of 11 for 177 yards and a touchdown and a pick. As far as receiving goes, Carmen Johnson, 3 for 101 yards and 2 touchdowns. Ashlyn Callahan, 4 for 96 and 2 touchdowns. Izzy Bussey had 3 for 56 and a touchdown. Shelby Calismo had a touchdown. And Savannah Barnes had a touchdown. Receiving touchdown, that is. As far as tackling goes, senior Gracie Hodgins, 6 tackles, which led the team there. Shelby Calismo led with 2 sacks. Savi Dortic had a sack. Emma Levy had a sack. And then La Barbera, I want to say, had a sack as well. Ashlyn Callahan, showing she's one of the best safeties in the state, had 2 interceptions in this one. Emma O'Connor with a pick, and Riley DeJesus with a pick. For Lakewood, the struggles continue here. Milana Wiles, the sophomore, 12 of 30 for 125 yards, which is kind of tough. Caroline Bain, 4 for 69, though, as she remains pretty consistent there. And then Jocelyn Jensen with 2 sacks, and Caroline Bain with an interception. But obviously not enough, as Ralston Valley won 62-0. Moving on, Columbine plays Cherokee Trail, and they win big, 68-0 here. Denver North would beat Lincoln once more, 12-7 in another close one there. Moving past the games we already talked about, let's go ahead and talk about Dakota Ridge versus Pomona here. Pomona getting a big win, 18-12 over Dakota Ridge here, one that they sorely needed. Interesting enough, it does not look like Jay Cordova play this game. So, interesting enough, the quarterback was Timberly Martinez, the junior, who was not super efficient, but they still won. I don't know if this is correct, but they said she won 21 of 51 for 127 yards and 3 touchdowns to 2 picks. Also had 8 rushes for 42 yards there. That's a lot of throws for them. But it worked out. Emily Abeda, the senior, 11 receptions, 94 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Audrey Mondragon also grabbed a touchdown there. Emily Abeda and Alora Martinez each led with 10 sacks. Alora Martinez, that is, had a sack. And then Timberly Martinez had a sack as well. And then Emily Abeda had a pick. Audrey Mondragon had an interception in this one. For Dakota Ridge, Adeor, 11 of 37, 140 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick there. Gabby Garces had 12 carries for 47 yards. Kate Barbick, the senior, 6 receptions, 109 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then Genevieve Pike, the sophomore, 5 for 31 for them. On defense, Darian Lewis, the junior, had 14 tackles. Emery Bowman, the sophomore rusher, had 8 tackles and 3 sacks. And then defensively, they had 4 interceptions from Tatum Williams, Grace Klepper, Natalie Nair, and Darian Lewis here. But it would obviously not be enough as Pomona edges Dakota Ridge and beats them 18-12. Green Mountain would then go ahead and dominate Arvada 67-0 here. Chloe Verbeek, the senior, 2 of 7 for 81 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Antonia Cargill, the sophomore, 6 of 12 for 73 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. They're able to rush the ball really well. Kara Harris, the senior, 1 rush for 61 yards, which went for a touchdown. Sasha Kalani, 5 for 61 and 2 touchdowns. And Sylvia Emmons had a touchdown. Receiving wise, Gianna Benson snagged one, a touchdown that is, and also had 2 receptions for 22 yards. Marissa Van Gilder, the standout freshman, had 1 big reception for 66 yards and a touchdown there. And then Sylvia Emmons had 1 37-yard reception for a touchdown. Caitlin Hurdle, the senior, led with 9 tackles. She also had a sack there. And then this defense had 5 interceptions from Almosh, the junior, Julia Schaefer, the senior, Ashlyn Bates, the junior, and Ashlyn Douglas, the freshman here. As this one was just not close. Green Mountain won 67-0. Moving on, Thunder Ridge, they take care of Grandview 34-20. Lincoln plays Rangeview, and Rangeview took care of them in a kind of low-scoring game, 12-6 there. Moving on to more games from Saturday here. We have Valor Christian playing Lakewood, and this one was over pretty much after the first quarter. They went up 27-0. Final score would be 59-0 in this one. Faith Prinzo, 9 of 11, 118 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick. Anna Shuden, 4 of 6 for 50 yards and a touchdown. They're able to run the ball relatively all right here. Savannah Khan, 64 yards and 2 touchdowns. As far as receiving goes, Lilywood had a touchdown. Savannah Khan had a receiving touchdown. Sophia Barr had a receiving touchdown. And Alexis Wood, of course, had a receiving touchdown. But that one was 1 reception for 65 yards here. She's an absolute beast. I think that's pretty much expected there. On defense, Sadie Lee led them with 8 flagpoles, 8 tackles. Stella Westcott, the freshman, had 2 sacks for them. And then interception-wise, Morgan Wood had 1, Margot Harry had 1, and then Reese Beezer, I want to say, had 2 against Lakewood. Bear Creek would then play Arvada, and they'd win big, 55-7 here. No stats from them, unfortunately. I only really have stats from Arvada, and Samaya Carrion, the freshman, she had 2 receptions for 45 yards and a touchdown in that one. She also led in tackles with 8, and then she also had an interception, as well as Dana Chacon, who also had an interception there. Dakota Ridge would then face off with Evergreen here, and Evergreen would capitalize and win big, 25-13. Maybe not big, but this was a big win for them as far as standings go here. Let's start with Dakota Ridge's stats here. Only a couple available as of right now, September 17th here. But rushing-wise, Gabby Garces, 8 carries for 144 yards and 2 touchdowns. On defense, the lead tackler was Addie Miller with 11, and then Natalie Nair and Addie Miller each had an interception, but that was obviously not enough. For Evergreen here, Addison McEvers, the senior dual threat, 17 of 33, 173 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. Also had 13 carries for 93 yards and 2 touchdowns in that one. Then it was the sophomore Ella Bunning. She had 8 receptions, 108 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Taylor Bailey right behind her with 5 for 40. On defense, Camilla Luna, the sophomore, and Addison McEvers each had 7 tackles. Lila Willoughby, the sophomore, had 2 sacks, and then Haley Hastings, the sophomore, had an interception as Evergreen wins a big 4A matchup, 25-13. That's for sure going to help them playoff-wise. Then we had Valor Christian face off with Chatfield here, and Valor pretty much ran away with this one once more. They were up 3 scores by the fourth quarter, 3 scores to 0 by the fourth, as they win eventually 27-8 here. For Valor, Faith Prinzo, 17 of 23, 239 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. She also had 11 carries for 67 yards and a touchdown. And then Savannah Khan, 9 carries for 56 yards there. Receiving wise, Ellie Johnson, 2 receptions, 83 yards and a touchdown. Savannah Prinzo, 7 for 69 yards and a touchdown. And Savannah Khan, 2 for 62 and a touchdown. On defense here, Reese Beezer had 8 tackles leading them. Margot Harry had a sack, and then Harry also had an interception, and then Reese Beezer had an interception as Valor Christian wins big against Chatfield 27-8. And then we had Green Mountain versus Bear Creek here. This one was just not a close game here. Green Mountain winning big, 44-0 over Bear Creek. Got a couple of stats here. Chloe Verbeek, the senior, 8 of 22, 181 yards, 2 touchdowns. Antonia Cargill, 1 for 8, a touchdown and a pick there. Sasha Kalani had 2 rushing touchdowns, only 2, but that went for a combined 63 yards. Kara Harris had 3 for 48 yards and a touchdown as they were able to run the ball pretty well. Marissa Van Gilder, the freshman, 3 receptions, 58 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then Sasha Kalani, 2 receptions, 55 yards and a touchdown for them. Ashlyn Bates led them in tackles with 7, the junior did, that is. And then Almosh, the junior, Julia Schaefer, and Ashlyn Bates each had an interception as they took care of Bear Creek. Littleton would then play Pomona and would actually play them pretty close here, but Pomona would end up winning 20-13, a nice 12-point fourth quarter, giving them the lead and eventually the win here. Let's start with Littleton, though. Ava Palmer, 13 of 31, 135 yards. Unfortunately, only 2 picks to 0 touchdowns in this one. Rushing-wise, Ashley Plazola, the senior, 15 carries for 68 yards. Ava Martin, 7 for 49 yards. Martin also had 7 receptions for 80 yards and a touchdown. Olivia May right behind her, 3 for 44 and a touchdown. On defense, Sierra Wilbur, the sophomore, 7 tackles there. Ren Freeman, the freshman, had a sack. And then Olivia May, Sierra Wilburn, and Claudia Jones each had an interception. As, honestly, to their credit, played Pomona pretty close. But Pomona, they were without Jay Cordova, and so here is how the rest of the team did in their win. Timberly Martinez at quarterback, 12 of 29, 193 yards, 1 touchdown to 3 picks. She also had 68 rushing yards for them. As far as receiving goes, Emily Abeda, 7 receptions, 135 yards right there, which is huge. Ava Cabral, the senior, 8 tackles that led them. And then Alora Martinez had a sack. Riskowski had a sack. And then Timberly Martinez had 2 sacks. And then Emily Abeda just proving that she's such a stud on both sides of the ball. 2 interceptions in this game as Pomona beats Littleton 20-13. Denver South would then take care of Vista Peak in a massive 58-0 win here for Vista Peak. They tried 3 different quarterbacks in Smith, Luevanos, and Fafita, but they would combine for 84 yards, 8 of 23, and 4 interceptions, just not finding too much there for them. On the bright side, though, the junior Goretti Vasquez de Leon led with 5 receptions for 55 yards. Adley Garcia and Kirsten Salvia each had 4 tackles, Garcia with 2 sacks, and then Loivanos with a sack, and then Vasquez de Leon with an interception, but obviously that was not enough to beat Denver South as they lost 58-0. South would then blow out Kennedy 34-0 in a non-close one there. Colorado Springs Christian would play Ellicott later, and they would beat them 13-7. 13 points for Colorado Springs Christian coming in the second quarter, by the way. Vista Peak would then play Kennedy and beat them 20-0 pretty handedly here. Anna Smith, 4 of 13, 40 yards and a touchdown. Loivanos, the freshman, 1 of 2 for 50 yards and a touchdown for them. And then it looks like the junior for Vista Peak, Linnea Clint Robinson, had a 20-yard rushing touchdown in this one. As far as receiving goes, JC Fafita caught a big reception for a 50-yard touchdown. And then Vasquez de Leon also caught a touchdown in that one. On defense for Vista Peak, JC Fafita, 5 tackles. Clint Robinson had a sack. Marley Allen had a sack. Then Vasquez de Leon had an interception. And Idly Garcia, also had an interception as they beat Kennedy 20-0. Then last but not least, TCA plays Ellicott, and they beat them pretty badly here, 36-0, and that'll wrap up all the games from Saturday. Let's move on to Monday. Only a handful of games, not too many here. And so let's go ahead and hop into it. Ellicott would blow out Vanguard 32-0. Manual would beat Aurora Central 39-0 here. Kaylee Walker, the freshman, 9 of 30 for 68 yards and 2 touchdowns to 1 pick. Kaylee Walker, the freshman, 8 carries, 117 yards and 2 touchdowns. LaKayla Byers, the freshman, had 5 receptions for 53 yards and 2 touchdowns, followed by Zaniah Hall, who had 2 for 23 and a touchdown. On defense, LaKayla Byers here had 5 tackles along with Zaria Travis. Zaria Travis also had 2 sacks. Martin, the freshman, had a sack. And then LaKayla Byers having herself a game. 2 interceptions, Zaniah Hall with 1, and Kaylee Walker with 1 in that one. Then Vanguard and Air Academy would play, but there's no available score right now, so it is what it is. And then a big upset alert here right at the end of the week. Highlands Ranch beats Thunder Ridge 14-13 here. Apotheker, 16 of 23, 110 yards, 2 picks, but Addison McLeod led them. 13 carries, 82 yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns. Mia Apotheker, was their lead receiver, 8 for 62 yards, and then McLeod also had 7 receptions for 44 yards. On defense, Aubrey Walsh led them with 5 tackles. Apotheker and McLeod, each had a sack, and then Tatum by Cosius, I want to say, had 2 interceptions. Addison McLeod with an interception in that one. As far as scoring goes, Addison McLeod did all their scoring, including what looks like to be an extra point that would win them the game. So that's a massive upset for Highlands Ranch there and for Thunder Ridge. So there you go there. Then we had Mountain View facing off with 5A North Glen, a very good North Glen team, and Mountain View dominated here, winning 40-6. They were up 34-0 going into the fourth quarter there, and they would obviously not look back. Mason Premer, the senior, 13 of 20, 258 yards, 4 touchdowns. Shosa had 39 rushing yards. Gwen Marks with a rushing touchdown there. As far as receiving goes, Gwen Marks also led 5 receptions, 149 yards, 3 receiving touchdowns with the hat trick. Maya Artis, the senior, 3 receptions, 36 yards, and a touchdown. Gwen Marks led with 8 tackles. Meg Hidalgo had 2 sacks, and then Kendall Finley, who had 2 picks. Ellie Harper had a pick, and Gwen Marks had an interception as they took care of North Glen 40-6. Not in a very close one. Air Academy would take care of Ellicott 12-6. Aurora West College Prep Academy would play Bruce Randolph and beat them barely 13-12 here. That touchdown and extra point coming in the third quarter. It would be the sophomore for them. That's Nevaeh Flores Duran, who went 5 for 10 for 30 yards. Seitu Sai, the sophomore, had 7 carries for 83 yards and a touchdown. And then Gutierrez Benitez, the sophomore, 6 carries for 77 yards and a touchdown in that one. On defense here, the freshman would lead in tackles. That's Jamima Victorino. or Victorine, excuse me, I want to say, who had 8 tackles there. She also had 6 sacks in this game, followed by Garcia Advino here, who had 4 sacks. Gutierrez Benitez had that's it, actually. Never mind. There you go. Aurora West College Prep Academy winning big 13, or at least a close one, 13-12. I don't know about big, but that's still a good win to have if you are them. And so there you go. That wraps up your recap for this week 4 2024 Colorado Girls High School flag football season. Let's go ahead and move on here. Let's move on to talk about Playmaker of the Week here. We have 5A and 4A Playmaker of the Week. Let's go ahead and start in 4A here. Let's talk about this Week 4 Playmaker of the Week, which is Mountain View's very own Maya Artis here. Excuse me if I'm saying that wrong, but Maya Artis, the senior athlete for them, did it all. And leading up to that North Glen game, her stats were looking like 44 rushing yards, 1 rushing touchdown, 74 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns, 17 tackles, 2 sacks, 1 interception. If we want to include that North Glen game, let me go ahead and see if those stats are put in here, and they are. She had 3 rushes for 21 yards there. Also had 3 receptions, 36 yards, and a touchdown, and then had 3 tackles in that game, as she's kind of the do-it-all player for Mountain View, and they're undefeated right now as well. Have not lost a ball game, which is absolutely big time, as they faced some tough teams this last week and are now sitting at 9-0, part of a really good team over there. So there you go. That's your 2024 4A Week 4 Playmaker of the Week, Mountain View's senior athlete Maya Artis. Now for 5A, as always, a lot of players to pick from, but I believe we got to go with Addie Beck here, Cherry Creek's junior quarterback, who comes in and against Columbine, a top 10 team, throws for 17 of 22, 302 yards and 6 touchdowns. Also 34 rushing yards and a touchdown in a big-time effort to knock them off 38-19. And then in the state championship rematch against Arvada West, led them to a win, led Cherry Creek to a win, 27-18, making big throw after big throw after big throw just to put them up and win them that game. And so that's absolutely big time there. That's 2 top 10 wins in 1 week, including a win over a team that was ranked ahead of you. So there you go. There your 2024 4A Playmaker of the Week, or sorry, 5A Playmaker of the Week is Addie Beck, the junior quarterback from Cherry Creek High School. All right, now let's go ahead and move on to 4A Power Rankings for Week 4. In case you don't know how we do these, myself, Kodey, and Gino, we each rank teams 1 through 10 in 4A here. If a team's ranked at 1 by any of us, they get 10 points. 2, 9, 3, 8, and so on and so on. I then add up all the points for each program, and the program with the most points is at the top, and so that's how we average out those rankings. So as I go on, you'll hear me refer to our PMC rankings. That's our average rankings. Our individual ones are the ones that myself, Kodey, and Gino have that are our personal opinions, as you'll see pretty soon here that we have some very different ones at times. So there you go. But let's go ahead and talk about Week 3's power rankings real quick here in 4A. So just outside was George Washington and Ellicott, each getting votes there. Tied at 9th was Mullen and Denver West. 8 Air Academy, 7 Evergreen, 6 Vista Ridge, 5 Pomona, 4 Dakota Ridge, 3 Green Mountain, 2 TCA, and at number 1 was Mountain View. This week, we had 3 teams that were just outside our top 10, PMC top 10, with Denver West, Elizabeth, and Denver North all being those teams here. And it just so happens to be that those teams are all the teams that we had at 10. And so I had West at 10, Kodey had Elizabeth at 10, and then Gino had Denver North at 10. And so let me go ahead and read off those reasons real quick here. Kodey said the TCA game isn't great, but they still picked up 2 shutout wins this past week to have a winning record and the number 10 seed. Gino says 4 straight wins for the Vikings. And then for me with Denver West, I mean, I still think they're a pretty solid squad. They only lost to Northfield here, which I don't know. I'm not going to panic over. this last week, that is, and so I think they'll be fine. They also got a 32-0 win over Lincoln, so I don't know. I think the 10th spot here is a pretty tough contest here, but let's go ahead and go to our true 10th spot here in our PMC rankings, and that is George Washington. Kodey has them ranked at, he has them ranked right here at 9 in his personal rankings. Last week he said that win over Doherty, or sorry, not that win over Doherty, he said they're 3-2 and had a close game against South, while also putting up some interesting performances. The Mullen game feels a little more fluky looking at the rest of their schedule. So that's what he had to say about G-Dub. They didn't play this week, so just wanted to throw that out there. Now at 9 is Air Academy, who does move down a spot. They lost a couple games here. This is what Gino had to say about Air Academy. He said they got blown out by Doherty and lost by a point to Vista Ridge. That lack of creativity on offense is starting to hurt the Air Academy cadets. Kodey has Air Academy just outside of his, and then I didn't drop them too bad here. I expected them to lose to Doherty, and not like in a close way either. So there was that. For them to play Vista Ridge that close, I think that was pretty impressive. So I'm keeping them here for now, but in our PMC rankings, they do move down a spot. Speaking of moving down a spot, that's what Dakota Ridge is doing, who's up next at 8. They moved down 4 spots here after a tough weekend. Kodey said this about Dakota Ridge: just going to dip this team right below who they lost to by 2 scores, as they still feel like one of the better teams in the state. Gino says this about Dakota Ridge: 2 losses to Evergreen and Pomona in the same day is quite concerning. And I would also say it's more concerning as well that Jay Cordova didn't play in that Pomona game either. And so that's kind of a tough go, but those are 2 really tough teams that you're facing in the same day here. I don't know if they've played, I don't think they played any teams like that leading up into that one. So they're not going to drop out our top 10. I think they're very talented. At least not right now. They're not going to drop out of our top 10. They're very talented, but they do got to get some things going here going into this next week. At 7 is Vista Ridge, who does move down a spot here. Kodey said this: lost a close one to Doherty and won a close one over Air Academy. I worry about this offense, but there's no questions to this defense legitimacy, which I have to agree with. Gino said this: only lost to Doherty by 1 point, plus they gave Air Academy their first loss of the season. I do think that is pretty big time there. As far as moving them down here, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know how they're moving down. I think it's more so that other teams are moving up instead of them doing that bad. They did lose to Doherty by 1 point here, but that's a team with a lot of athletes, right? So I'm not really tripping about that. I wish I could have went to that game. I feel like that was a really good game there. A 1-score game, so there you go. But I think they'll be fine. It's just other teams are rising here. And so let's talk about those teams real quick here. Moving on to Mullen, who's at 6, who moves up 3 spots here. Let's start with Kodey. He said, don't look now, but the Stangs are 6-1 and have been putting up high scores. The product may be a little inconsistent to this point, but the point total shows a dangerous upside. Agreed there. Gino says this about Mullen, who he has moved into his top 5. He said only 1 loss this season and all their wins have been blowouts. Can't ignore the dominance here for sure. And so I think that's why they are moving up here, as they move up from tied with the 9th last week to now 6th. Also moving up is Evergreen, who rounds out our 5 spot here, our top 5, as they are at 5. Let's go ahead and talk about them. Kodey said the Mullen loss is still a little confusing, but rallying back to beat Dakota Ridge was important to riding the ship and putting them in a great spot to have momentum heading into the Pomona game to begin October, which I do agree is pretty big time. Gino says this statement win over Dakota Ridge. They enter my top 5 this week. So there you go. Now at 4 is Pomona, who is finding some rhythm here. Kodey says this: they finally got a win over a top team, beating Dakota Ridge, and will want to sweep these next 3 games to have a chance at a winning record this season. With RPI, they're a lock for the postseason, but you want to have something to build off of heading into it. Gino has this to say about Pomona: yes, they beat Dakota Ridge, but you'd like for Pomona to win by more than 7 against Littleton, which I agree with as well typically, but without Jay Cordova, I think that game was obviously very different. Assuming Cordova comes back, they beat them by a lot more, so I'm not panicking just yet. They still got wins. The fact that they won without her against good teams in Dakota Ridge, and I think a Littleton team who's getting better as the season goes on. That's definitely a green flag here. But like Kodey said, they do need to continue to win games to get a winning record here. With RPI, they'll probably make the playoffs, but you want to continue to work your way up that ladder. Pomona is a team that is ranked really low. And I'm just throwing this out there. They're ranked really low in a lot of other rankings by Max Preps, the seeding index that Chassa puts out, and they're going to be a team that is that's just a team you don't want to face. Let's just say that they're a dark horse right now, and you don't want to face them. So there you go. Now our top 3 pretty much stays the same. At 3 is Green Mountain. Kodey says this about them: their tougher stretch was for sure last weekend, so they just stayed the course with a margin of 111-0. And Dakota Ridge lost, so they bump up for him. Gino said 3 blowout wins this week, including a 27-7 win over Evergreen, which is pretty big there. At 2 still is TCA. Gino says this: TCA might as well be 1B instead of 2, because they have absolutely been unstoppable to start the year, which I gotta agree with. Kodey says another great week for the Titans, who are mopping it up in the spring, 7-0. So there you go there. Me being from there, my alma mater doing pretty good, keeping them at 2 right now. But I think undisputed, though, it has to be Mountain View, who's also undefeated. Gino says this: Mountain View is stacked and looks unstoppable right now. Kodey says, I can tell you firsthand, this team is the real deal. They're physical and their instincts are top notch. The coaching staff made some great adjustments from the first to second half to surge ahead. In case you didn't know, Kodey actually coaches Arapahoe, which is why he doesn't do the 5A power rankings. And he got to coach against Mountain View this week, and obviously they lost. So there you go there. And yeah, I gotta agree, looking at the clips from that game, this is a physical team. I'm just going to throw this out there because I feel like this is going to be an issue eventually here. But if a team is playing them, it would frustrate that team a lot more to complain about flags against this squad. Because I do feel like there are some plays that may be perceived as that there should be a flag on them, but it's not. It's football, and it's dominant football from Northern Colorado. And you just got to accept it. You know, this is a tough team. They're very well coached over there. I think we knew that, though, going into this season. We really liked their coach over there and liked what we saw from the Summer League as well. And, I mean, it's all paying off. It's showing. They're undefeated. They're playing physical football. They're playing really good talent and blowing them out. They blew out North Glen, who is for sure a 5A playoff team, and a pretty solid one at that. I don't think they're going to be one and done in the playoffs either. And so that's huge for a first-year program to do that to a program that's been around longer than they have. So, gotta love that for Mountain View there as they continue to stay at number 1. But one's gotta wonder, is Mountain View and TCA going to meet up in the playoffs? We're about halfway to the season. It's time to start speculating. So, there you go there. Those are your Week 4 4A PMC rankings for Colorado Girls High School flag football. Once more, just outside is Denver West, Elizabeth, and Denver North. At 10 is George Washington, 9 Air Academy, 8 Dakota Ridge, 7 Vista Ridge, 6 Mullen, 5 Evergreen, 4 Pomona, 3 Green Mountain, 2 TCA, and at number 1 still here for like the 4th straight week is Mountain View. Okay, now moving on to our 5A rankings. It's just me and Gino on this one. But the system's still the same. Me and Gino, though, pretty much agreed on a lot of things on this week's rankings. So there you go. But let's talk about last week's rankings. Just outside was Regis Jesuit, Chatfield, and North Glen. Tied at 9th was Heritage and Columbine. 8th, Thunder Ridge. 7, Ralston Valley. Tied for 5th was Legend and Valor Christian. 4th, Chaparral. 3, Cherry Creek. 2, Arvada West. 1, Mountain Vista. This week here, we have 2 teams who are just outside now in Thunder Ridge and Horizon. Thunder Ridge probably would still be in our top 10 if they did not lose to Highlands Ranch by 1 point yesterday. And I'm not gonna lie, let me talk about that a little bit. We thought that was a mistake. Like, there's no way that they did, but they did. And that is a massive upset that's just going to kick them all the way out of this top 10 here. And so let's go ahead and get into it. At 10, we both got Denver South here. Gino says this: Denver South enters the top 10 for the first time this season after Thunder Ridge got upset by Highlands Ranch. Denver South also on like a crazy 5 or 6 game winning streak right now, I want to say, as well, as they are pretty hot at the moment. Now at 9 is Columbine here. Gino says, tough loss to Creek, but the Rebels are still a top 10 team in my opinion, and I gotta agree with that. This was not that bad of a game, at least looking at the final score. It was not that bad, but Columbine did score some points at the end there to make it close. I know that's going to matter in RPI though, so there you go. But they are a very good team right now though. They're sitting at 9. At 8 is Heritage, and this is what Gino has to say about them. Heritage has a massive opportunity to rise in these rankings next week in their game against an unbeaten Chaparral squad. That game is a must-watch, and I gotta agree, because right now I'm recording this on September 17th, 2024. This time tomorrow on September 18th, 2024, I am going to be at LPS to go ahead and watch that showdown between Heritage hosting Chaparral here, who is firmly seated in our top 3 at the moment. Slight spoiler alert there. And so I'm really excited for that one. It's an opportunity for Heritage to move up here. You know, that's been a squad that has probably the best dual threat, one of the best dual threats in the entire state, in Abby Nichols, the senior quarterback for them. And at the moment, I mean, they've only lost 2 games, one of them being to Thunder Ridge, which doesn't look as great now, which they lost to 26-13, and then they lost to Arapahoe very early on in the season in overtime, 19-18. This is probably one of their biggest games since that. Mullen was a pretty solid game, and Regis was a pretty big game as well, but I think this is definitely one of their toughest opponents that they'll ever face this season. That is until they play Columbine, Mountain Vista, Legend, and Douglas County to end the season, and Pondo, I guess, as well, to end the season, but still, we'll see what happens. It gets real for Heritage here soon. Now, tied at 6th is Legend and Ralston Valley, and they're only tied because I have Legend higher than Ralston Valley. Gino has Ralston Valley over Legend, and so let's go ahead and talk about Ralston Valley first here. Gino has them ahead of Legend. He says SmackDown Lakewood 62-0 to enter my top 6. And you're right, they did. I think it's good that Zoe Zoll got back her mojo and got going again. Sometimes you need a big blowout win to just see the ball going into the receiver's hands and scoring for you to get your confidence back. I'm looking forward to Ralston Valley turning it up. But I got Legend ahead of them. This is what Gino had to say about them. We know Legend's defense is a top unit in the state, but I'm still not confident in the offense in the long run. And I do have to say this about Legend here. By the way, before I say what I'm about to say about Legend, they beat Grandview, or I guess that was last week. Sorry, they beat Highlands Ranch 36-0, but before that they beat Grandview 20-6 and then lost a tough one to Mountain Vista. I actually went ahead and rewatched that game here. Most of the fourth quarter I actually took a closer look at, looking through that game, replaying a lot of things here, and that Legend team is so good. So much talent over there on both sides of the ball. Defensively, they're for real. I am hoping that the injury to Jocelyn Huntsman is not severe, is what I'm going to say right now, because I do think they need her. But at the same time, this Legend defense has a lot of weapons on defense too. It's going to be tougher without her, but they can play without her if they need. But if she's there, I still think, I mean, they're probably a top 2, top 3 defense in the entire state here, depending on the day, really is what it is. I can't say that definitively, but for sure, like, at least top 3. They're so talented over there. Offensively, they got a lot of potential. Maddie Smolin is a nice little dual threat for them. Ava Gavi has made some big plays for them in the past. I mean, this is a Legend team that feels like they're steadying the ship a little bit here. I mean, they lost Arvada West by a lot, like in their first game, and then they played Mountain Vista really well, playing good defense, and I mean, losing in a tough Hail Mary. And I have heard that they are appealing that because there might have been an inadvertent whistle. I don't know what's the update on that as of right now, September 17th, but that is tough if that was the case there. But either way, I like where Legends at. Let's see what happens moving forward, though. They have a pretty solid last half of the season here. They play Ponderosa, Rock Canyon, Regis Jesuit could be kind of tough there. Horizon could be kind of tough. Heritage and Chaparral will for sure be tough. Some of their toughest opponents since the first half of the season, and then Thunder Ridge to end. So we'll see how they respond moving forward in this one there. Now, getting into our top 5, we have Valor Christian. Gino says this about Valor: that win over Chatfield was a statement that Valor definitely belongs in this top 5, and I gotta agree there. They're kind of popping off right now. The Prinzo sisters, Alexis Wood, Savannah Khan, just to name a few players. They're playing good football, and they got talent. Let's see what happens moving forward here. I think they have a pretty big matchup. Let me just double check here. I'm pretty sure they have a pretty big matchup here this upcoming week against TCA on the 24th here, which is Tuesday. So you'll have to wait 2 weeks to listen to that episode there, but I am gonna see about making it there. We'll see what happens. I'll definitely see about making it to that one. That could be very exciting for both programs, so we'll see about that. That's a team that's undefeated, by the way, so there you go. Now at 4 is Arvada West here. Gino got to see them live. He says this: I have dropped Arvada West to 4 this week. Same here. After their loss to Cherry Creek. Plus, I can no longer keep Chap out of the top 3, with them staying undefeated this late in the season. No Harper Tillman in that loss to Creek was huge, though, so I expect them to bounce back nicely once she's back. And yeah, I gotta agree, Harper Tillman not being there, that is a tough one to lose against Cherry Creek, especially because they like to go over the middle to Sophia Ball, who's just so dominant there. She's gonna make contested catches. Molly Dorigi, she's gonna do her thing over there as well, and that's just tough. If you're Arvada West here, I think they'll be fine though. Offensively, they got a lot of firepower still. They could win you a lot of games, and also they're still the defending state champs. You got to give them some credit here still until they lose in the playoffs and they're eliminated. I've been saying that since week 1. So even though they moved down 2 spots, this is a lot closer 1 through 4 than it looks though. So there you go. Now at 3 right now is Chaparral, who moves up 2 spots here. Gino says this: Chap enters my top 3 after they finally played a playoff team in their game against Regis and won big. Things are going to be very serious soon, as they got to face Heritage and Thunder Ridge in their next 2 games. Like I said, I will hopefully be at that Heritage game this time tomorrow, and that will be an elite game that I'll be able to cover, and so I'm really excited about that one. And then Thunder Ridge is kind of a sneaky team. I know they just lost here to Highlands Ranch, but you definitely can't count them out. So we'll see what happens here as they face some tough opponents coming up in the second half of the season. Now at 2 now is Cherry Creek, who earns a spot moving up over Arvada West with that win over them and Columbine, I should say here. Gino says Cherry Creek is flat out scary with Addie Beck at quarterback. She took that Bruins offense to an entirely new level against Arvada West. So yeah, I gotta agree there. She started last year. I was kind of surprised that she was not starting this year, but Chambers for them was playing so good. And then Addie Beck comes out and beats a top 10 team in Columbine, and then beats another top 10 team, a top 3 team in Arvada West. And that's big time. She made some excellent throws, super mobile, athletic. She is arguably one of the best quarterbacks in the entire state here. And with weapons like Molly Dorigi and Sophia Ball, it's going to be tough to stop this Cherry Creek team. Plus, they're very well coached, too. So there you go there. That's Cherry Creek moving up to 2. And then at number 1 still is Mountain Vista, who is undefeated with their blowout win over Grandview 35-7. The second half of the season, a little bit... Actually, no, I'm not going to say it's tougher than their first half, but you got some tough playoff teams that they're playing, as iron's going to sharpen iron as they enter the playoffs here. If they rattle off these wins, these next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 wins, I mean, you're already scared of them because they've been number 1 for like the 4th or 5th straight week at this point. but this would be insane if they win out going into the playoffs. But they play Rock Canyon next, then Regis Jesuit, then Heritage in October, Chaparral that same week, Thunder Ridge that same week, and then Ralston Valley to end the season. It is a brutal schedule here, but I mean, this is the same team that has beat Cherry Creek, Arvada West, Pomona, Legend. They beat a lot of good teams, so we'll just have to see what happens. But right now, they're undefeated. Their wins are really good. It's hard to argue against that. So there you go. But your 2024 5A Week 4 Colorado Girls High School flag football rankings go just outside Thunder Ridge and Horizon. At 10, Denver South. At 9, Columbine. 8, Heritage. Tied at 6th is a Legend in Ralston Valley. 5, Valor Christian. 4, Arvada West. 3, Chaparral. 2, Cherry Creek. And at number 1 right now is Mountain Vista. All right, but that'll wrap up this episode. Thank you so much for rocking with us. We really do appreciate all the support that you have shown us this season so far. At this point, we are about to be halfway. Yeah, I want to say halfway through the regular season. So exciting things coming up here. This episode's going to come out, and then after next week's episodes, something interesting is going to come out here. And so if you're listening to this, you're hearing it here first, but it's going to be graphics for our end of the year awards. We're going to give a mid-season update on who we have for Offensive Playmaker of the Year, Defensive Playmaker of the Year, MVP, Newcomer of the Year, which goes to our freshmen classically. We'll do a Coach of the Year as well. And then we'll also eventually do an all-freshman team and then an all-PMC team. By the way, for 5A and 4A. So there'll be a 5A MVP, 4A MVP, all that great stuff. And so we'll kind of release some mid-season thoughts and graphics after next week's episode, which I think will be really exciting to do there. So just be on the lookout for those. That's obviously nothing set in stone, but coaches and other programs, if you want to help us out, go ahead and put in stats in. That's absolutely big time. And then we'll take any pictures you have of your squad as well. I mean, we'll do that anyways. So there you go. Just so that we could reshare them, post them, and possibly use some for our graphics and our future episodes. So there you go there. But make sure you follow us at Playmakers Corner. Give us some love on social media. And until next time, we'll catch you later.